takes a special type of crazy person to be able to sit here and rant into a camera for more than 30 seconds. And lucky for you, I am that guy. Today I want to talk about Spotify and the problems I have with the platform as it relates to different black culture specifically, but honestly anything that's not considered Western culture globally. I'm a user of Spotify. I've been using Spotify for 5, 6, 7 years now. I don't even know, probably since high school. And as I started to go on what I consider my musical journey and getting into different types of music from different artists in different places, specifically in the African diaspora, whether it be the West Indies, Africa proper, London, Europe, whatever it is. And as I've started to have a more diverse set of listening patterns than the average listener who's probably just listening to top US 100 or whatever charts you want to give it, I've started to notice some inconsistencies in the way that they categorize music. And I think that it's doing everybody, not just the artist, but also Spotify, a disservice by not understanding cultural nuances that could potentially be affecting their business and their bottom line and their listener patterns. You know what I mean? I feel like a while ago, I used to listen to Joe Budden, and he used to talk about somebody's always programming the algorithms, right? There's people behind these algorithms. And I started to notice that maybe I would like to think that they're just culturally ignorant and they're just unaware of the differences and nuances in different places, cultures, people that is preventing people from hearing who they need to hear. So I'm going to get into a couple examples of where I think there are problems with how they categorize things, right? When you go to your like songs on Spotify, now at the top, it gives you categories of types of songs that you could potentially want to listen to. And whether it's trap, mellow, chill, aggressive, whatever it is. But they also give you genres up there as well. I started noticing how they categorize different black artists specifically. It's clear that they don't understand the music and the people that are making it, right? So like when I click Afro beats, I shouldn't see Skilly Bang, right? Skilly Bang is from Jamaica. So why is his music appearing as Afro beats in my like songs? Now I know it's not Afro beats, but somebody who might be new to the artist or not know anything about them is definitely not going to know that. And so it's somewhat misleading to people who don't know, and it's not going to help them really understand what they're listening to in that way. Another example that I've seen pretty frequently is they'll suggest you different types of playlists, right? And I kept getting this one called Brazilian Funk. And it was interesting to me because I don't have any, I think I have maybe one or two Brazilian songs in my Spotify. And in that playlist, I would see artists like Burna Boy or like Wizkid. And while they may have some sounds that overlap with that type of music, to somebody who doesn't know who these people are, and this is who I'm speaking from the perspective of, because as a business, you're trying to find new ways to keep people using your products. And if I'm somebody who doesn't know anything about Burna Boy or Wizkid and I get a Brazilian funk playlist, I'm just going to assume that Burna Boy is Brazilian funk. And I don't think that does anybody any good, right? Like, I don't really know what I'm listening to. And you're probably not going to send me in the direction of actual Brazilian funk music if that's the case. And then the last thing that I say is a little bit different, but I also think in terms of a business model is important to understand, is that people in different countries make similar music at times. Like understanding that there are rappers in London, there are rappers in Jamaica, there are rappers in South America, there are rappers in Africa, and being able to give recommendations across cultural boundaries that make sense is difficult, but it also provides a huge opportunity for expansion in terms of what your listeners are listening to, right? Like it's easy to associate an ESTG with a Yo Gotti, like when you're recommending songs. But what about recommending, if I'm listening to Coda the Friend, this is really niche, but if I'm listening to Coda the Friend, you can recommend me Nux and it not sound too far off. And that provides a whole new like opportunity bubble for you to suggest different types of music as a business, which keeps people on the platform more and more interested in listening to different types of artists, right? A lot of people, as we know, are passive listeners. And so these little nuances, while they don't really matter to somebody who doesn't care if they're listening to an African artist as a Brazilian on a Brazilian funk playlist, it definitely does affect what they're essentially willing to tolerate, right? A lot of media is programming, and understanding that media is programming allows you to look at a longer time horizon of how you're going to affect their listening process, right? If you start slowly integrating different types of artists or different sounds into their palette in these suggestions, in the playlists, in the DJ and radio sections, then you have an opportunity to grow even larger as an organization, because then somebody goes and listens to Rema, and then they hear Victini, and then they hear Black Bones. You know what I'm saying? Like, these smaller artists that I feel like a lot of people need to know about can be suggested through the feed in the right way if you understand who's making what type of music. And I think I think Spotify's a German company, but being a Western company, they probably don't have a lot of people in positions to really understand what's going on and who's making what type of music. They probably have a very shallow understanding of these things. And so I would love to see them really break down those nuances and really pay attention to them, because from our perspective, like, mixing up a dancehall artist with somebody making Afro beats to somebody like me makes absolutely no fucking sense. But to somebody in the middle of Kansas who may have heard a Burna Boy song that they like, they might just be culturally ignorant enough to just say, okay, this is Afro beats. And I don't think that's fair to the artist or them, because you're sort of misleading them in a way. There's a bunch of other things I think that are interesting about Spotify and the business model of streaming right now, but I think these problems are definitely something that should be on the forefront of their mind when thinking about expansion, especially because they're starting to tap out the listener in certain demographics here in the US, right? Like 89% of the generation above mine, and then 82% of Gen Z have some form of online streaming. So understanding that they're going to have to venture outside of America to go and find new customers. These are little nuances that you're not going to be able to skip. You're entering a market like Jamaica. You're entering a market like Trinidad. You're entering a market like a Nigeria in a bigger way, right? Like, they're there, but to enter them in a bigger way and try and capture more of the landscape, you're going to have to understand these things, because there's other streaming platforms in those areas who probably understand the nuances a lot better than you, like an Audio Mac. So definitely tell me what you guys think about this, because this is something that's been on my mind as I've been going on Spotify for a very long time. And I definitely think that there's opportunity for them to improve here, right? This might be something that they have no idea about. And at that point, since it's not intentional, you can't blame them for it.